The other day I was talking to some marshals that have been partnering with ICE. They said that they had detained a cannibal and put him on a plane to take him home. And while they had him in his seat, he started to eat himself. And they had to get him off and get him medical attention. These are the kind of deranged individuals that are on our streets in America that we're trying to target and get out of our country.
Sorry, what? It's Tuesday, February 24th. I'm Jane Coaston, and this is What a Day, the show enjoying more of President Donald Trump just making stuff up. This time, it's sending a hospital ship to Greenland. Trump posted on Truth Social Saturday that a, quote, great hospital ship was headed to Greenland to do something for Greenlanders. But according to the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon hasn't gotten any orders to send one of our 2 hospital ships anywhere, and both ships are currently being repaired. Remember, PDTJMSU. President Donald Trump just makes stuff up. On today's show, it's a big night for President Trump and likely a very painful night for everyone else. What will he say about Iran, the Supreme Court, groceries, his many, many enemies? A lot of Democrats won't be sticking around to find out. They have their own plans tonight. We'll tell you all about them. So let's start with the State of the Union. President Trump will be giving his address tonight, and spoiler, the state of his particular union isn't great. According to new polling from CNN, Trump's approval rating with Americans is 36%. And on his 2 biggest issues, immigration and the economy, multiple polls are showing that the president is flailing. His numbers with Democrats are bad, which you expected, but there's even been a dip with Republicans. CNN's Harry Enton dove into Trump's overwhelming unpopularity on Monday.
Talking about the lowest Trump has ever been going into the State of the Union, the lowest that any president has been this century going into a State of the Union at this point in their presidency. It is also the weakest that Donald Trump has ever been with independents. Look at this drop. We've been talking about it the past few months. At this point, a year ago, Donald Trump was at minus 13 points. Look at this, minus 47 points among independents, the lowest Donald Trump has ever been in either of his 2 terms as president with independents.
But of course, Donald Trump doesn't believe any of it. Here's the president on Monday at an event honoring people killed by undocumented immigrants.
Polls are tough, when you get a fake poll. I get them today. I saw one today that I'm at 40%. 40%. I'm not at 40%. I'm at much higher than that. I'd love to run against anybody. The real polls say you kill everybody. It wouldn't even be close.
Yes, the president ranted about his polls at an event honoring people killed by undocumented immigrants. Naturally. But despite all of this, Democrats are still not winning over the American people. So how should they respond to tonight's 2-hour adventure of non sequiturs, rants, and excessive use of bronzer? To find out, I spoke to New Jersey Democratic Representative LaMonica McIver. She's delivering a prebuttal to the State of the Union today. Representative McIver, welcome to What a Day.
Thank you so much. It's great to be on.
Some of your Democratic colleagues will be skipping the State of the Union. Are you going?
I'm going to be skipping as well. At the end of the day, we know what to expect. We know what the president is going to be talking about, and who wants to sit through hours of rhetoric, hatefulness, and pure lies.
I 100% agree. I also would not go. What are you doing instead?
Well, we have a bunch of programming happening. We're going to be definitely going over to join the Move On, State of the People, State of the Union. I'm not sure exactly what they're calling it, but they're having an entire program there and really looking forward to going to participate in that. We're going to be talking to constituents as well in my district about what they've heard, how they feel. And I think that's really more important than listening to Donald Trump for sure.
You are also giving a prebuttal to the State of the Union Tuesday morning. What's your message to Americans right now?
I think the message right now to people, what we're aiming for is to talk about how our democracy is at stake and how it's being stripped away every day underneath Donald Trump and this administration. And I think people have been so overwhelmed of all of the things that are happening that really, folks are losing sight. Some may be, fully engaged. But I think explaining to people and talking to people about why it's important that we keep our democracy intact and that we defend the country that we love the most and our freedoms here. I think that is what I am aiming for, and I hope that people grab from my speech. The last thing I will say is that I hope to leave some inspiration for folks of why we must be on the front lines and defending our democracy, because we want to keep, our freedoms intact here in this country. I need people to understand why their fight is important and why they have to do all that they can safely, right, to make sure that we defend our democracy.
What does that look like to you? What does being on the front lines look like?
For me, as a Congress member, it means, number one, conducting oversight. It means holding this administration accountable. It means speaking up for the voiceless. It means defending people's rights and, honestly, honoring the Constitution, which is what we should be doing. This is not, our democracy is not something that we made up because we want it and it sounds good and it's like nice to have. It's a part of our Constitution. It's a part of our rights that we, many folks way before me and you fought for us to have. And so really, to me, that's what it looks like, being on the front lines and really, speaking up and being the resistance.
To your point regarding oversight, you're facing federal charges for a visit you made to a detention center last May. What was your reaction when you found out that the Department of Justice was charging you with assaulting federal agents?
I was shocked. I mean, I'm still almost a year later shocked that this is happening and that I am facing 17 years in prison. Once again, I showed up to a detention center in my district to do my job, to have an oversight visit. I wasn't there to protest. I was not there for any other reason other than to do the job that the people of the 10th Congressional District elected me to do, which is protect them and make sure that I'm having oversight, which is my right as a congressperson. And so I found out via Twitter, which was crazy. We had been getting these threats all week that I was going to be charged. And then someone sent me like a screenshot from our acting U.S. attorney at the time, Alina Habba, who said she was charging me. My lawyers went on like the database where you go to find like charges or to find the document and literally couldn't even find it. And that's how I found out, which was, once again, a nutty situation. But, what can you expect with this administration?
It actually checks out that you found out via Twitter, knowing the Trump administration. How has your experience affected how lawmakers show up to detention centers, even if they show up?
Well, I think some lawmakers have doubled down a little bit on their oversight responsibilities and have shown up literally because the Trump administration is trying to keep us out of these detention centers. But then I also think that some lawmakers have been scared away, right? They feel intimidated. They feel bullied. Who wants to be up against charges for doing their job? No one. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow. And the process itself is the punishment. And so, fighting this case, legal fees, all of these things that, I'm dealing with, I don't think anyone wants to sign up for necessarily. So I'm sure it scared some lawmakers away from doing oversight.
Yeah, because, the entire process of this, it's not just like one day you're charged and then at some point you'll go to court. You're back and forth with your lawyers, I'm assuming, like pretty frequently.
Yes, we are literally in the second stretch of our fight of this case. We filed an appeal to the Third Circuit Court, and we're waiting to go back in front of a judge again to argue why this case should be dismissed based on legislative immunity. And so it's a process. I feel like I should have went to law school at this point because of all of the information I've learned. And quite frankly, it's just been sad, to know that this is the state of our country, what we're dealing with this president and his administration, and how they've literally weaponized the Department of Justice. I've said since last May, while it may have started with me, it will not end with me.
We're in the second week of a partial government shutdown. The Department of Homeland Security is closed, but Immigration and Customs Enforcement is fully funded and still functioning because of Trump's spending bill that was passed last year. So what is the point of the shutdown if nothing about immigration enforcement will change? Because it seems really unlikely that it will, while some federal workers are missing another paycheck.
Yeah. So, the point of it right now as a whole is that people are, especially Democrats here in Congress, and I think the half of the country, if not more, they are tired of seeing what is happening with the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. And so the demands have been listed of what Democrats would like to see, which are some guardrails to put on the ICE agents as well as the Department of Homeland Security. And so, those demands are important, especially when we see American citizens being killed in broad daylight. We see families and communities scared to come outside because ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, it continues to terrorize them. And so I don't don't think it's an all-in-all fix. We won't get to an all-in-all fix until Democrats can get control back over the House. But I think it's a start to at least do what we can to protect the people that count on us, who voted for us to do so.
Obviously, shutting down the government isn't ideal. Is there another way Democrats can get what they want out of DHS besides shutting down the government?
That's a great question. It's $1 million question. I think what we're doing right now and asking for, the Republicans to consider the demands, that is like a really, really strong tool of what we're doing. It's unfortunate to shut down the government. No one ever wants to see a government shut down. But I think the situation that we're dealing with Americans being shot and killed in broad daylight, people being beat, we're in a state of emergency, and we have to do something to protect the American people from ICE and the Department of Homeland Security.
As President Trump gives the State of the Union, which you will not be present for, what will you be watching for?
I mean, honestly, I have no expectations for this president. I mean, there's no bottom for him. I would say I'm going to be appalled if he does such and such things. But I mean, honestly, I have trained myself so well to not be appalled about anything that this president does, because we see each and every day that he can go as literally low as you can go. And so, honestly, I just expect for him to, be cruel, to be insulting, to have a temper tantrum meltdown worse than a 2-year-old. And I'm just, we're going to all watch that play out, as we've already watched that play out on many press conferences, the previous State of the Union, and on any other platform that he takes. This is what we can expect.
What do you think is the best way Democrats can show defiance right now?
I think the best way to show defiance is, one, to continue being the resistance to this administration. I think the number one thing is to continue to show up for the voters who voted for us. I think voters need us more now than ever. They've always needed us. But right now, in this moment of time, there's so much darkness. There's so much uncertainty. Many people feel voiceless. They're dealing with their troubles of lack of health care, affordability issues. There's so much happening. And I think Democrats have to be on the front lines protecting and, leading the people that voted for them. And I think that's the number one way we can be defiant to this administration and show up and do our jobs, because that's the number one thing we should be focused on.
Representative McIver, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was great to be on.
Are you subscribed to What A Day? Hitting subscribe is one of the easiest things you can do right now to keep yourself up to speed on everything happening in this wildly chaotic news cycle in a way that won't take over your entire day. It also helps other people find the show, which means more people actually knowing what's going on, and that feels pretty important right now. So subscribe, give us a like, and we'll keep showing up 5 days a week because we have to. And we love you. If you're already a subscriber, thank you. Seriously. We'll be back with headlines after some ads. This episode of What A Day is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pastas. Plus, all items conveniently bake in 25 minutes or less. Unlike many store-bought options, Wild Grain uses simple ingredients you could pronounce and a slow fermentation process that can be easier on your belly and richer in nutrients and antioxidants. There is no preservatives and no shortcuts. Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable. In addition to their variety box, they have a gluten-free box, a vegan box, and a new protein box. Tasty bread and amazing cookies. I've loved how Wild Grain makes delicious sourdough and sweets that are ready in just a few minutes. There's nothing like having an artisan bakery in your freezer to chase away the winter chill. Now is the best time to stay in and enjoy comforting homemade meals with Wild Grain. I highly recommend giving Wild Grain a try. Right now, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off your first box plus free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/WOD to start your subscription today. That's $30 off your first box and free croissants for life when you visit wildgrain.com/WOD. Or you can use promo code WOD at checkout.
Headlines. So I think it's a war that, on the verge of war, where Trump doesn't want war, the Iranians don't want war, the U.S. Arab allies don't want war, but that's likely to be the outcome.
Not particularly encouraging words from MS Now military analyst, retired General Barry McCaffrey. His comments follow a State Department announcement Monday that the U.S. ordered some diplomats and their families at the embassy in Beirut to leave Lebanon. The State Department also said U.S. personnel remaining in Lebanon would have their in-country travel restricted. An official who spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity said that it's a temporary measure and that the embassy will remain operational. Meanwhile, a second U.S. aircraft carrier joins the other American warships and aircraft in the region, a buildup that offers Trump several options for a potential strike, even as talks between Iran and the U.S. continue. U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon has permanently barred the release of a report by Special Counsel Jack Smith on an investigation into Trump's hoarding of classified documents. Cannon, who was nominated by Trump and who is probably his favorite at this point, granted a request from the president to keep the report under wraps. Shocking. It detailed the probe alleging Trump stored sensitive documents at Mar-a-Lago after his first term, and that he obstructed government efforts to get said documents back. According to court papers, Attorney General Pam Bondi had already determined that the report was, quote, an internal deliberative communication that is privileged and confidential and should not be released. Well, now I really want to see it. Cannon's order blocking the release also applies to Bondi's successors at the Justice Department. She said the release of the report would present a, quote, manifest injustice to the president and his two co-defendants. Accountability? What's that? The Supreme Court said Monday that it will hear arguments from oil and gas companies this term. The energy companies are trying to block lawsuits seeking to hold the industry liable for billions of dollars in damage linked to climate change. The Colorado case will likely have implications for other lawsuits, some of which have been dismissed while others work their way through state courts. Suncor Energy and ExxonMobil appealed to the Supreme Court after Colorado's highest court let the case proceed. The companies argue emissions are a national issue that should be heard in federal court, where similar suits have been tossed out. The Supreme Court has also asked the two sides to present arguments on whether the case is truly ready to be heard. President Trump's State of the Union address is tonight, but if you don't want to tune in, don't worry. There are other options. Defiance.org founder Miles Taylor spoke to MS Now's Alex Witt about the alternative event his organization is hosting.
We're calling our event the State of the Swamp for a reason, because Donald Trump said, Alex, he was going to drain the swamp. And now, through corruption and greed and abuses of power, he's turned America into that swamp.
Taylor is a former Trump Department of Homeland Security advisor. According to Defiance.org, State of the Swamp will feature remarks and appearances by a myriad of guests, like Massachusetts Representative Seth Moulton, New York Representative Dan Goldman, Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, former CNN anchor Jim Acosta, Crooked Media host Stacey Abrams, legendary actor Robert De Niro, and producer Caitlin Plummer's pride and joy, Mark Ruffalo. The State of the Swamp will take place in Washington, D.C. and is scheduled to stream for free. And that's the news. One more thing. As I said earlier, the Trump administration lies all the time. The entire administration, every member of it, lies like they breathe. And one of the biggest liars is Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. I know there are so many examples of Noem lies you're probably thinking of right now, like alleging that Alex Preddy was engaged in, quote, domestic terrorism after he was shot and killed by federal immigration enforcement in Minneapolis in January. But there's one lie that I am just baffled by. Let's go back to July 1st, 2025. Here's Noem speaking at an event at the so-called Alligator Alcatraz deportation camp in Florida.
The other day I was talking to some marshals that have been partnering with ICE. They said that they had detained a cannibal and put him on a plane to take him home. And while they had him in his seat, he started to eat himself. And they had to get him off and get him medical attention. These are the kind of deranged individuals that are on our streets in America that we're trying to target and get out of our country.
Sorry, what? She told this same insane story again on Fox News that same night. Breaking news, we're deporting cannibals.
And I talked today about one of the horrific instances of our individuals, our law enforcement officers, having to put hands on individuals that were even cannibals and removing them from our country.
She even told Fox News' Jesse Waters in another Fox News interview, quote, you know what bothered me most is that this U.S. Marshal just said it was like it was normal, adding that the Marshal said, quote, he was literally eating his own arms. That is what he did. He called himself a cannibal and ate other people and ate himself that day. Was there any evidence for the story provided at the time? Any, say, corroboration? Of course not. And now, 6 months later, the truth came out. According to 3 Department of Homeland Security officials, the cannibal allegation is, quote, entirely false. Another official said of the story, quote, that is completely made up. Asked for comment on Kristi Noem inventing a cannibal deportation story, the Department of Homeland Security put the blame squarely on someone else, telling The Intercept, quote, she was told that story on a deportation flight by one of the air marshals. Sure. So again, it's clear Kristi Noem will lie about anything. Even cannibals. That's all for today. If you like the show, make sure you subscribe, leave a review. Remember that the best version of FBI Director Kash Patel is the Kash Patel who is not directing the FBI, and tell your friends to listen. And if you're into reading, and not just about how I keep seeing people furious at Kash Patel for drinking beer in the U.S. men's hockey team locker room, but like, do you want Kash Patel to be running around doing FBI stuff? Really? Like me, What A Day is also a nightly newsletter. Check it out and subscribe at crooked.com/subscribe. I'm Jane Coaston, and Kash, don't listen to the haters. The 2026 Tokyo Marathon is March 1st, and I think it would be so cool if you went and then never came back.